So joining me on the Lewis Nichols show today, it kind of seems like a long time coming because I've interviewed a lot of people that I know you've worked with. So let's say hello to Joel Redman. How are you?
Good, yeah, not bad at all. Pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. I was going to say, how are you kind of coping with the lockdown? Because it's kind of, we're getting somewhere now, aren't we, in regards to seeing the future?
Yeah, it's been okay. Picked up another job sort of thing, so I'm working full time with another job just to get the money coming in, and made a little like a sort of gym in my shed with some equipment I had. So yeah, training quite a lot, and I wasn't dieting very well. I've just tried doing that intermittent fasting this week, so I've just had a week of that, which seems to be working quite well. I know it worked well for Yestin Reese and Chris Andrews got in really good shape with it. So I've tried it now, and it seems to be working quite well.
Well, you've always seemed to kind of keep in really good shape because when I've ever kind of seen you at a UK show or we've seen you in WWE, you've always been in really good shape. So it's obviously something you kind of put a lot of time and attention into.
Yeah, I mean, it's I started with Chris Andrews together and yeah, very similar sort of beginnings. But Chris got majority of the bookings over me when we were kids because Chris had a really good body and I was, overweight or quite badly overweight. So I learned to wrestle better and I tried to improve my wrestling skills to get more bookings. And then because Chris was there, that was my competition, I started to train and then we trained together on his farm. And then that was kind of my reason to get into shape. And it's just sort of stuck ever since. But I always have a competition with someone. I'm very competitive. Yeah. So, Chris is retired now. So now it's like Yestin or someone. I'll look at Yestin and I know Yestin's will be training hard during lockdown. So it gives me a kick up the arse to train hard myself.
So was wrestling something you always liked? Did you grow up kind of being a massive fan? Did you always know that you wanted to actually work in the industry?
No. So I grew up on a farm in Devon, but it's very, very remote area of Devon. So I didn't have a TV when I was a small kid. And then, I grew up, I didn't ever watch wrestling. And then I sort of went to a live wrestling show in Exeter, which is the nearest city, with Chris and Sam Andrews when I was 13, 12 or something. And that's my first time even seeing it. I never saw it on TV. I watched it live. So I watched James Mason and Chad Collier, and it was a Wrestling Alliance show. And then from there, I started watching Sunday Night Heat on Channel 4 and then started watching it from there, really.
What was it about kind of watching it live? What was it that kind of made you feel like, I want to get into this? This is something I really enjoyed. Was it the kind of the good guy, the bad guy? Was it the physical side of it?
I'd done judo as a kid growing up for a long, long time. So I was used to sort of grappling and stuff. And I guess that's what attracted me. I just enjoyed that sort of grappling sports. And then, wrestling was obviously a good mix. So it was good. Yeah, it was good.
You've gone from obviously watching it. So where did it kind of go from there to actually training? Where did you train and when, how old were you when you started?
So we went and watched it live and then we started wrestling on some hay bales in their barn with hay bales and tyres and a tarpaulin. It was sort of little wrestling characters and costumes and stuff and proper backyarding back in those days. And then we wanted to be wrestlers. So we went to a weekend camp at FWA Academy when I was younger. Did that, came back, heard that the school was going to open up in Exeter. I would have been 15 at the time. And then the school last minute got cancelled. The guy who was going to do it bailed. So I contacted the company and sort of ran it as a teenager. And we just used to get wrestlers to come down and train us. I think the first one was Andy Simmons would come and train us, and then Phil Powers, Sammy Ray, and eventually I met like the UK kid who was trained by Shawn Michaels. And then he started a school in Portsmouth. And I went and trained there. And from there, I met Mark Sloan and then trained with Mark Sloan, which is when I lived with Haskins. That was for a couple of years.
Kind of sounds like, you describing training in the farm, a mix between WWE and Emmerdale, if the two ever came together. It just kind of picturing using tyres and hay bays kind of, it sounds...
Yeah. It wasn't much to do, I guess, in those areas. It's a very rural sort of area, So it was good all the boys would get together and we'd have this wrestling company in the barn, but it was good times, it's good memories. You look back at it and you'd cringe a bit watching them back, but it's definitely good fun.
And you mentioned there Mark Haskins as well, and he was on the show and he was talking really highly of you because I didn't realise you two actually lived together, he mentioned, or stayed together for a while. So obviously I guess you and him got on really well because you teamed for quite a while as well and had a lot of success together. Yeah.
So Mark Sloan had the FWA Academy. So I started I think he was looking for like a wrestler for one of his shows, and I was training with UK kids. And then the UK kids sort of gave me the the chance that I go and work this show for Mark Sloan. And I was a terrible wrestler at the time, but I sort of turned up and I worked real hard with the ring. And, you know, if they were carrying a board out, I'd carry 2 boards out. And sort of, I maybe earned much respect through the hard work I did on the ring, not so much what I did wrestling-wise. And he started putting me on all the academy shows, even though I didn't train there. And I had a good year, probably wrestling for the FWA Academy, which is where I met Haskins. And then when he closed the academy, he started a thing called a Super 8 training. So he picked 8 wrestlers that he wanted to keep training. And we had to move to Portsmouth, and he'd train us on like a full-time basis. So me and Haskins were picked. So we just got in touch with each other, went down to Portsmouth and just had the dingiest little flat in Southsea. We didn't have money for electric or anything at the time, and we scraped together enough money to get the flat, but we slept on the floor for the first few weeks. We didn't have any furniture or anything. And
wow.
Couldn't pay the electric bills, had no lighting. And then as we sort of got little part-time jobs to pay some money to pay the bills, we sort of slowly built a little flat down there. So, you know, it was hard times, but that's what makes you a good wrestler, because we had to succeed in the wrestling.
And what are your thoughts on his success now? Because he's doing really well in Ring of Honor and making such a good name. So what are your kind of feelings towards that? Because obviously you've known him for such a long time, worked with him, so you must be kind of over the moon with it.
Yeah, he's just a natural wrestler. You know, you can tell from an early age he was good, just the way he moves in the ring, the way he takes bumps and sells. You know, and he's not a bigger guy, he's a smaller guy, but he can make himself look so aggressive when he does his stuff. He almost makes himself look bigger than me when we were tagging, because he was so aggressive in the ring. So yeah, it was just a matter of time before he'd get snapped up. He's one of those very few people that you see that they're just naturals. They just get it straight away. Now,
you know, you've wrestled in the UK for a lot of years in the independent scene, but I kind of wanted to go forward and talk about where it actually came from. You know, you wrestling for WWE, how did that come about? You know, did you send a tape to them? Did they contact you? Like, how did that process?
I think I was running the DWA in Devon, and then I just took the boys to a training thing, maybe Leicester or something, for Alex Shane. And Drew McDonald was there. He was a talent scout for WWE in Europe. And Drew just said they'd been trying to get in touch with me. He didn't have any contact for me. It wasn't, you know, Facebook and Instagram and stuff wasn't as big back then. He didn't have any kind of contact for me, really. So he just wanted to try and, he met me at the training thing and said, they want to see you on a tryout, fill in this form online, but it's a given, really. You'll be there for a tryout. So me and Yestin went to Manchester, did a tryout there. It didn't go very well. They asked me to go back to another tryout. So then I went to the O2 in London. That's when they signed me.
Wow. So going back to that, kind of going into that tryout the second time, did you ever anticipate that they were going to see something in you and say, right, we want you to work for us? Did that ever cross your mind?
I think the first time, my first tryout, I was real headstrong in getting signed. And it was like life or death to me. I had to get signed. And because of that, I didn't perform very well. And the second time in London, I went with Chris. And we went up, stayed at my relative's place in London, took the train in the next day. And I just didn't really, not that I didn't care, but I wasn't, if I didn't get signed, it didn't matter. Do you know what I mean? Like I thought I've got other things in my life and it's good to go and get the experience, but I knew the last time it hadn't gone very well. You kind of think, there's a very slim chance they're going to sign me today, but I'm just going to go there and enjoy it because it's a good experience. And I wasn't quite as, I was driven, but it didn't matter as much to me as it did the first time. And because of that, I was more relaxed in the ring and my wrestling was a lot better. And they gave me a job.
And how did you feel actually moving away? Because that's such a kind of big thing to live in the UK and kind of follow your dream and go out there and actually work for the company. So how did you feel about having to move to America?
I didn't mind the move because I moved out of the farm where I lived at quite a young age to sort of wrestle. I moved up to London, up to Essex, to sort of learn to wrestle, and I was doing some wrestling there with Phil Powers. So it didn't really matter to me too much to move to America. The girl I was with at the time, I went to Pittsburgh, did my medical, signed my last contract, and I came back and she told me she was pregnant. She'd just fallen pregnant, and I shouldn't go to America. I should stay in England and be with her. And I said, no, you can move to America with me. No, let's go and live together in America. It's fine. So that was the plan. So I went out there. She came out for a bit. She came back for the birth. I came back for the birth of my son, and then she refused to go back out. So you need to quit the job. You need to quit wrestling, and needs to come back to England and live with me and the kid. Well, maybe I should have. You know, maybe it's a bad thing, but I stayed in America. I stayed with WWE. It's one of those hard decisions you've got to make, and I still see my son now a lot. But it was just one of those challenges that life throws at you. And my view was that if I'd come back to England, we would have broken up anyway, probably because she made me make that choice. I didn't want the idea that she wouldn't even try and live out there with me. So it was a bit tough, you know. It was a couple of years where I didn't see my kid or anything. So,
and I guess for you as a father, you know, the one thing that you're probably going to always say to your son is follow your dreams, and don't let anything kind of stop that. So I think, you know, it sounds like you've done the right thing, because that's given you such a platform to do what you do and travel all over the world. You know, Japan last year, it's given you such an opportunity to do things. So I think you did the right thing. I think anyone kind of would have done that in that situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if it's the right thing, but it was just one of those choices where, you know, either thing wasn't a particularly good outcome, but I just decided to stay in America, and it's just the way it was. But yeah, it's one of the life's challenges, I guess.
Obviously, teaming with Neville, you know, now known as Pac, how did that actually come about? Did you guys have a chemistry and they saw something and thought, you know, they're going to work well together? You know, how did that teaming actually come about in the first place?
My first match for Sloan at the FWA Academy, I tagged with Pac. So it was kind of weird that we tag again, whatever it was, 5 years later or 6 years later in America. But yeah, it was, we knew each other. We get along real well as people. You know, we're similar in a lot of ways as people. But you were just thrown together last minute. Ryan, who you interviewed before, I think, Connor. Yeah. So him and Tom, they got pulled from the tournament because Tom was released from his contract, so they needed another team for the tournament. And they obviously wanted to do something with Pac. You know, they wanted to get Pac on TV as quick as they could. So I think I was just thrown with Pac as like, he's English too, let's just throw him together. But it did work well, you know, and like I say, I'm competitive and he's a good person to be competitive against. So when we were training, our conditioning was very good. You know, we were really top of the class conditioning-wise, and it was a good incentive to work hard.
And do you still keep in contact with him? Because obviously he's doing incredibly well in AEW now. So do you guys talk quite a lot? No,
I've not spoken to him at all since I left. Yeah, we never spoke again. I've never reached out to him or anything. I'm not very good at keeping in contact with people. You know, I've got a very sort of small group, I guess, of people that I will speak to from wrestling, but I probably should be better, but I don't ever keep contact with people. I just sort of move on to the next thing.
Well, I was going to say, you know, with the tag team, it worked, and WWE kind of saw something in you both, because you won the NXT, the first NXT Tag Team Champions. So when they gave you that opportunity, did you kind of get a sense that this company believed in you both? You know, to get such a big opportunity, you beat the likes of the Wyatt family, Heath Slater, Drew McIntyre. You were beating the biggest people to get that opportunity. So it must have made you feel confident going forward.
Yeah. No, it was really good. And, you know, we won the belts, and then I was going to go to WrestleMania in New York that year. And then they were talking about bringing us up onto TV and what tracksuit size was I and stuff. And then we was wrestling Bray Wyatt on a house show in Florida. Just a body slam, sort of slipped behind, went wrong. Just blew my ACL out, my knee. I tried to pretend I was okay, so I drove my car back home and stuff, and thought I got away with it. And the next day at training, I just stomped my leg down and flipped the meniscus inside my knee over. And then they got scanned and stuff, and then they called me up and said, you'd be out for 9 months, and all those plans have been scrapped. And they sent someone else to WrestleMania. I had to stay back in Florida. And that was kind of the beginning of the end, really. You know, it's a bad thing to get injured anyway. It was a bad time to get injured because they all sort of noticed the injury, and then it just kind of plays up with your head a little bit when you're sat on the shelf for that long.
I was going to say, you know, I can imagine that's a dream come true to wrestle at WrestleMania. So for you at that time to be on that kind of wave, you know, everything was going the way you wanted. The company believed in you. There were so many plans for such a big future. You then get injured, and then everything stops. What did you do in that kind of 9 months? Where was your head at? Were you worried kind of that I'm not going to get a second chance at this?
It was okay to start with, and then we had like a gym, so I lived in like a complex in Florida, and I'd go on my crutches down to the gym, and I'd do some chin-ups or some chest press or something, and I'd try and stay in shape. And then they kept pulling me in the office and sort of giving me a telling off for training, and I shouldn't be training, I should be resting, and that kind of played with my head. Because when you're in Florida, yeah, you've got your mates there, but it's very dog-eat-dog in NXT. So you haven't got a lot of real close friends, you're kind of on your own. So you need to have your training, or you need to have this like drive for the next thing. But when you're injured and you can't even go to the gym and you can't wrestle, you just sat there in a different country, you know, the other side of the world, and you just think, what am I doing here? It's just pointless. And when I went there, it was FCW, so there was maybe 30 people, 25 people, so your chances of getting called up pretty high. When I was injured, it started changing to NXT. We all moved to Orlando, And in Orlando, you had about 100 people. And you start thinking my chances here of going up to the main roster are really slim. So kind of started to question if you're ever going to make it. And it was a hard time. And, you know, I probably fell off the wagon a little bit and made some bad choices during that time, and ultimately got me released.
I was going to say, because you did make a very brief return, and then you got released. So what were the conversations at the time with you being released? Can you remember them, and who was the one that told you?
Trying to think. Yeah, I come back and I wrestled Marcus Louis, a French guy, and I beat him on NXT like quickly. It was like to get me back on TV and give me a push. And then that episode never got aired. So that was like, oh, that was another bad timing, I guess. So that kind of knocked me back down the ladder again. And then I had another little injury on my back. And then just it wasn't going right for me. And I was so frustrated because I couldn't move very well. Like I've been quite athletic, I guess, before. And then with the ACL tear, I had this big knee brace on. And I just couldn't do the vaults and stuff anymore. And that was really playing with me. And I was losing my temper during training. I think I'd take my brace off and I'd throw it on the floor. I'd get, you know, telling off in the office for losing my temper. But, you know, when you're wrestling at a high level, you're kind of a perfectionist, I guess. So it was difficult. And then I was got called in the office. I can't remember who told me. Probably build them up. Just called me in and said, we're releasing you today. But I wasn't very upset at the time. I knew it was coming. And I was kind of happy in a way. The only good thing was the day before, I don't know if Robbie Brookside knew I was going to be released, but he had me in the ring at the end of training, just chain wrestling with people. And he just send in like Enzo or Big Cass and all these wrestlers. And he sort of say to me to tie them up a little bit. And I just go in there and I'd be tying them all up. And he just keeps sending people into me. And Bill DeMott walked out of the office to watch for a little bit. And the trainers were all watching me do it. And I don't know if it was Robbie's way of being like, trying to save my job last minute. It didn't work, obviously, but that was quite cool, I guess. But just one of those things. If I hadn't been released, I wouldn't have gone to Japan. And Japan's been my best experience in wrestling, so I wouldn't have ever probably had that chance. So I don't know. It's real political, you know. There's a lot of politics in WWE.
Yeah,
there's politics in British wrestling, there's politics in every kind of wrestling. It really gets to my nerves. I just don't. I'd come from a rugby background where if you were the best player, you're in the starting 15. There's no question, you know. Whereas in wrestling, it's not about being the best player. It's about if you're mates with this guy. You know, it's a difficult business to understand sometimes, and it gets very frustrating.
Oh, it's good because a lot of people, I mean, if you look on Twitter and stuff, a lot of people kind of talk when they speak about you, kind of say, you know, he must be gutted. He was such an underrated wrestler, should have gone on to another big company. But to hear you actually say, you know, it was kind of a good thing for you because you had such a good experience in Japan. I mean, what was it about wrestling in Japan that you personally loved so much? Because I know a lot of guys like the fact that the audience are different. You know, they don't kind of make as much noise. They clap very rarely. But, you know, when they do, it's because they're really into it. So what did you personally love the most?
The way you're treated. I just love the culture in Japan. I love the people there. There's no idiots, you know. There's no fights or anything on the streets. And everyone's real helpful. No one's ever going to be rude to you. There's times in England, I live in Salisbury, which is a nice town, I guess, in England. But there's parts of Salisbury I wouldn't want to walk through very much, you know, and you feel intimidated, don't you, at times in England. You don't get that in Japan. I could have my 9-year-old son walk all over Tokyo and I wouldn't worry. You know, there's just nothing dodgy in Japan. It's a real nice place. And the crowds there, I think one of the shows for our first tour of Japan was for Chaos in Bristol. We had a match in Chaos and it was a good match and stuff. And all I could hear was the crowd were heckling me because I was going bald and I had a bald spot on my head. And you kind of like, you put your body on the line here and you know what Chaos is like. It's a hard style of wrestling. So you'd be putting a lot of risk here. And all you care about is the fact that I'm going bald. Yeah, just kind of sums up a lot of British fans, unfortunately. It was in Japan, they just sit there and they respect whatever you're doing. And they have me do a British style. I'm in Japan to do a British style. And that British style, sometimes in England, people can sort of, oh, this is boring, this is slow. But Japan, they just appreciate it. They watch and respect and appreciate what you're doing. And it's just a nice place to be. And a good team of wrestlers. There might be a load of politics there, but I don't speak Japanese. So they might be calling me all kinds of names, but I can't understand what they're saying. That works out well for me, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of videos and stuff that you've done, and it's clear to see that when you are wrestling in Japan and wrestling the Japanese guys, that your passion, it's written all over your face. You can just tell that you're loving it, and it's something different, you know, because I've seen you wrestle in the UK, and yeah, you love that, but there's something different when you see videos of you wrestling in Japan. It's just like, it's kind of something comes over to you and you can just see that you're excited, and the guys that you're wrestling, you know, they're kind of these world-class athletes. It just looks like you have such a good time.
It's just like, yeah, they are. They're athletes. They're real athletes. And the training there is so hard in the dojos. Their conditioning is so good. You know, in England, people will say that I've got this good conditioning, but in Japan, I've probably got the worst conditioning. Those guys can blow me up. They can do an hour match without even breaking a sweat, some of those wrestlers out in Japan. So my conditioning is nothing compared to them. So I do like the fact that I can go in there and have these matches with them, and they're going to keep up with me. I don't know, just, you know, I like grappling. I like judo background. I like to wrestle. And in Japan, I can't do all the sort of hokey stuff with them. You can't really talk. It's just get in there and wrestle. And I don't have to sit in the back and plan a million things because I don't speak English. So I can't plan a million silly spots in the match. It's just get in there and lock up and see what happens. And that's fun. That's when you do that and you know how to do that. It's really good fun.
And, you know, you were there last year. So before this pandemic, were there plans for you to be there kind of now or the following year? What were the plans with wrestling in Japan?
I would have been there in April for Champions Carnival. They just couldn't get me out in time. I tried to fly out there 2 weeks early before they were going to stop letting people into Japan. Literally the day we changed all my flights. I was going to fly in like 4 hours time. So I was just going to get straight on the train from Salisbury, get up to Heathrow and go for 6 weeks, whatever it was going to be. It just ended up being that the flight was arriving 2 hours too late into Tokyo. And at midnight, the day before was the cut-off period. And we just couldn't get me into the country. But they ended up cancelling the tournament anyway. So it worked out quite well. I would have been stuck in Japan for 6 weeks without any shows. So it worked out pretty well in the long run, I guess. But yeah, I think they tell me that the plan is to get me back out there again. I imagine probably later in the year if they reschedule it. I don't know.
I say, you know that kind of wrestling is full of rumours, and there's one going around at the moment. I'm not sure if you're even aware, but if you type in your name on Twitter, a lot of the leading wrestling magazines, websites are predicting that you're going to be one of the next new names signed to Impact. Is that something you've even heard of, or is there any truth in that?
No, I've not even spoke to anyone at Impact. I did the TNA boot camp. God, it was a long time ago now. British Boot Camp 2 or something, I think it was. And I think I was tipped to do quite well in that. And I remember having a talk with Al Snow one day, and he just said to me, would you be interested in moving back out to America? And I hadn't been back in England that long, and I was enjoying seeing my son. And I just said to him, you know, I've really got no ambition to go out to America again to live, unless it was a really good contract or something. I don't think the contract was going to be very good. So I sort of made that quite clear. And the next day I was cut from the boot camp. So I don't know if that was, I may have been cut, that wasn't good enough. I'm sure that's what it is, but it may have not helped that I said I didn't want to move out to the States.
Yeah, it's kind of the big rumor at the moment. All the kind of wrestling websites have put that out there.
Well, I hope so. Fingers crossed, you know. But
it's the first you've heard of it for now, though.
Yeah, I don't. No, I'm not. I know is Sammy Callahan still there? I know.
Yeah,
I know Sammy real well. So I don't know. You know what wrestling's like. It's not going to be because they've seen me probably and think I'm good. It's probably because someone's put a word in for you. So, you know, I mean, you need to have sort of mates in the right places, and I don't know. That's how the business works, I guess. So they may have asked for a British heavyweight, and he may have put a word in. Maybe that's what's happened there. I don't know. But I've not heard anything, so we'll wait and see. I'll let you know. You can be the first one to announce it if I hear.
That would be amazing. It's good to see you back on TV. And the one thing I did want to ask you, kind of for you, who would be your kind of dream match? If there's somebody out there now that you've not wrestled that you'd just love to have a match with because you think you'll work well with them?
Oh, that's a good question. There's a guy in All Japan called Ayagi. He's a young boy. I've done some tags with. We meant to have a singles this April, which didn't happen. That would have been a good match. And Miyahara, he's not the champion at the moment. Suwama's a champion, but he was champion before. We were meant to have a singles in April. That would have been a good one. In terms of wrestling, Pete Dunne, probably. I've never wrestled Pete Dunne.
Wow.
I know he's wanted to wrestle me before. I've heard a lot of the boys say that he was going to come down and do some holiday camp shows so we could wrestle, but we've never wrestled before. It would have been good. I wrestled Tyler Bate when he was 16 or something, and he was phenomenal when he was 16, but I've never wrestled Pete, so that'd be good.
And obviously now wrestling in the UK is huge. You know, you've got WWE, NXT UK, and there's so many opportunities now to really kind of make a name in wrestling and make it a kind of job. So a lot of people would have assumed that you would have been part of NXT UK. It just kind of seemed like the obvious thing for a way back in, because this company seen so much in you. This would have been the perfect time. So were there any conversations about you ever doing stuff with NXT UK or not at all?
No, never. They never contacted me. I don't know. I never contacted them though. Like I contacted them before the lockdown. I messaged William Regal and said I had an interest in coming back, and obviously I just want to go for a tryout or something, and see what I can do and see what he got any interest in me. And he's just told me to get back in touch with him once I hear the lockdown's finished, and we'll get the ball rolling. So there is something in the pipeline there. Whether it'll come off, I don't know. I might have burnt bridges with people. I'll probably piss someone off in the office there. You never know, do you? It's so difficult to know what's going on, but I'm no doubt pretty annoyed someone there, and I've probably pissed someone off who's wrestling there at the moment, so they're probably they're gonna try and block me or something. I don't know. It's just wrestling. When I came back from America, I kind of, in a way, I probably was a bit regretful that I'd been released, and I had a bad attitude for a couple of years because it felt kind of a bit depressed, I guess, in a way. That you got gone from NXT and stuff, and you come back, and not that it's a knock on British wrestling because I love British wrestling, but it was like going back to Tiverton, Heathcote's Hall in front of 100 people, and I kind of felt like the time before when I wrestled there, before I went to America, in my head I was saying goodbye forever. I was going to go to America and be a big star, and I wasn't a big star. I came back almost with your tail between your legs because okay, we won the tag belts, but I never got up to the main roster or anything, so I kind of felt a bit of a letdown in a way to the boys down there, and it kind of gets you a bit less motivated, and it gave me a bad attitude for a while. I was a real prick to people backstage, and that's probably not going to help me out now. But you got to try and make amends for those things and show people that it was just a bad time in my life, and it's not how I really am.
I mean, I've spoken to so many people doing these interviews, WWE stars, and they've kind of said the same thing. They had a time when they were younger, and they made some mistakes. They had that kind of attitude at times, and I think that for you, it's just I've never had the story in regards to kind of you had everything, and then an injury, something you couldn't help, has then taken that away, and that must have been. I couldn't imagine what that's like to even one, get your head around, and two, to kind of the what ifs. What if that didn't happen? Where would I? What would I be doing now? So it must be kind of one of the most unfortunate situations I think you can possibly be in, or been in.
Yeah, it was crap. If I'd been on the brink of going up, and then I'd stopped performing very well as a wrestler, and they'd scrap the plans, well, that's your own fault. You're not performing well enough. But when it's a silly little injury, like off a body slam, that could sort of cost you everything in a way, it is difficult to deal with. And maybe it didn't affect me for a couple of years later. And then when I came back to England, I watched a lot of guys who are main roster guys now who I trained with. I'm not blowing smoke up my own ass, but I was a better wrestler than them. And I'm watching them on the main roster now making big money. And you just kind of think, what would have been if we hadn't put that body slam into the match, if we'd taken that bit out, what could have been? We could have been big stars, and it is a shame, but it's just life's lessons, You can get down about it and complain about it, or you just get up again and you try again, and you've got to dust yourself off. And if they, like I said, I spoke to them before the lockdown, so if I can get back there, and it'd be like redemption to me in a way, if I can get back to NXT UK, it would be like another shot at it. I was quite young when I went to America, and I'm older now, and I know what I'm doing a bit more. So I'd love to go back there and just have another crack at it.
What was Dusty Rhodes like? Because so many people, like you mentioned, you worked with Connor from the Ascension, and he comes on every week on my podcast, and he has the greatest stories about Dusty Rhodes. So what was he like, for you? And did you ever have any kind of experiences with him? Did he give you any advice?
Yeah, he was great. I wasn't a big fan of American wrestling, even as a kid. As soon as I saw wrestling, the first show I ever saw was that live show in Exeter. I just got hooked on British wrestling. So I watched Heat and stuff, and obviously I watched American stuff as a kid. But I've always had more of a passion for British wrestling and the old world of sport wrestlers. So meeting some of those guys is a bigger deal to me than meeting some of the American guys. And Dusty, I'd obviously watched his work a bit, but he was before my time, I guess. I hadn't seen a lot of his work as a kid. I studied him once I got there because obviously he's one of the best. So you started to study him. But real nice guy. I liked him a lot. He's just good fun. And he obviously took a shine to me quite early on. And I was doing like a James Bond character. He seemed to like that, You just you were trying to find what he liked in promo class and just trying to get an idea of what he likes. And if he liked it, you were off and running. But or if he gave you an idea, if he had an idea for you, you were normally onto a winner, and you just sort of play off that. But I struggle with promos. I hate promos. I don't like that side of wrestling. I like the grappling of wrestling. I don't like the sort of costumes and that bollocks, American stuff. So, you know, it was difficult for me, the promo classes. But as a person, yeah, I really liked him.
And for, you know, the last thing I want to kind of ask you is you've done wrestling in a lot of the independent companies in the UK. Who at the moment do you see as kind of a rising star, someone that we're going to see a lot more of, whether it's signing for WWE, whether it's going on TV in other companies? Is there anyone that you're kind of thinking, yeah, they're going to go far?
There's a lad called Max Wilson in Devon who's
Yeah.
got potential to do very well. He needs to get his body in shape. He's, you know, and don't in any way think that I think that every wrestler has to be a bodybuilder. I'm not like that, but you need to have some kind of look about you. He's lacking a look. He hasn't got any presence. He's a great wrestler. He's picking up the wrestling really well, and he's studying it, but he hasn't got any presence. So he needs to do something about that, whether that's his wrestling gear, his body, the way he carries himself to the ring, just something to make him stand out a bit more. So he's good. I think else is good. I wasn't too sure on your mate Joe Bourne to start with. I thought maybe his attitude was bad, but he came up to an all-star show yesterday not long ago just to come up and just be around the boys, I think. And he got in the ring with Dean and stuff before and did some rolling around. And I sort of saw another side of him there. And he's probably got a good attitude for it, I think, actually. And he got a real good look, so I could see some potential there. I think he could do quite well. Just see where, and he's young too, so he's got a lot of time. Otherwise, I don't do a lot of independence. I just work for All Star really, so I don't always see a lot of new people. I see a lot of people who should get more recognition than they have, but I don't know about new wrestlers. I'm sort of out of the loop, I guess, with the indies.
I've got to
trying
say,
to think about.
You know, it's been great today to talk to you about your career, because it's kind of, I'm hoping the rumors are true, because normally this certain site tends to get it right. So I'm hoping they've heard some kind of inside scoop, and we're going to see a lot more of you, because I think you've got a lot more to give. And it's great today to talk about kind of you getting into wrestling and your time in the WWE and going to Japan. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Well, like I say, they haven't spoke to me, Impact Wrestling. I will say that All Japan, they contacted me. I wrestled a guy called Aoki who passed away last year in a motorbike accident. And I wrestled him in 2008 for Pro Wrestling Noah. It was an opening match. It was a big match in Coventry Skydome. And then I didn't really hear from Japan. And then I heard back from them again at the start of last year. Just a random email in my junk folder on my Facebook thing. And luckily I went through the junk bit for some reason and I saw it. Invited me to come out to Champions Carnival. So this Impact thing could be in my junk folder. I don't have to I'll have a check in a minute. I'm eager to check my Facebook messages. But yeah, like I say, nothing yet, but we'll wait and see.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
No problems, anytime.